everybody, and welcome to the Everyday Farmers Conference, all about getting started with small ruminants, which are sheep and goats. Today, we are going to be discussing all about sheep and goat products that are not specifically milk, that are not from milk. So we have a milk discussion, but this one is primarily not milk. And we have some great speakers with us. We have Andrea Kidwell and Robyn Crowningshield, and they're going to talk a lot about kind of the products that they've handled, some that they've experimented with, and just share all of their knowledge about kind of all the wonderful things you can do with sheep and goats. So Andrea, if you could start and introduce yourself, and then we'll do Robyn and then get into questions.
Okay. Hi, my name's Andrea Kidwell. I have Prosperous Hills Farm. We're located in Virginia. We have about 10 acres, and we have a couple different kinds of goats. And we do a lot of other things also, but all my products are goat milk based. So okay. Is that going to be a problem?
No.
I didn't realize that was like a no milk based thing.
No, so this is more like I guess not a food type thing. So it's not like the creams and the milks and the like soap. Technically, I know has milk in it, but you don't eat soap. So this, I guess, I should have been more clear about it's not an edible product.
Okay, cool.
Good. Okay. Hi, I'm Robyn. Sorry. Hi, I'm Robyn Crowningshield. My husband and I own Cozy Nook Homestead in Asheville, Massachusetts. We have roughly 110 acres, mostly wooded. I raise purebred polled Icelandic sheep, and I do quite a lot with them as far as working with their fibers, their fleeces, their pelts, and there are actually areas that I intend on going into and dabbling in this winter when I have more time.
Great. So before we started this, I actually was talking to Andrea, and she got into 4-H too. So how about we just start with that topic? Because I know, Robyn, you, I think you still show, and Andrea still does too. So can you guys talk a little bit about the show world, the 4-H world, and kind of how you can get started in that, and maybe some of the are they competitions? Some of the shows that you guys have done in the past?
Yeah. So we got our farm about 2 years ago, and upon moving here, we moved from a different county. So when we moved to our farm, the fair was about to go on. So we just went to our local fair and met a bunch of kids, and right away got into an amazing group. So my son Austin, his grandfather has always raised boar goats, as my husband was always in 4-H growing up also. So he started off showing boar goats, and then he also shows heifers, which will breed and raise our own beef and show also. And he got some boar goats from his pawpaw, and then we've gotten some off of local people around. And there's a bunch of shows that go on throughout the year that we'll go to, and he gets a lot of experience with that, and it helps him so much to know how to properly feed them, how they need to be filled out more in certain areas, to look their best and, of course, be the most healthy, which, is the most important thing. And like last year, he had a goat that put on a little too much weight, and his back hocks could not really handle that. So as in this year, he's got a different routine he's going to do with putting them on a ramp to build their muscle in the back end more, and walking them up hills more to handle the weight. And he's going to use different feeds, and it's been really, really amazing. He's met a lot of awesome people, and He's getting a different billy because he wants to have more built goats for the show. We've never done lambs, but we have friends that have sheep, so we're strictly just the goat people. But it's been awesome. He clips them himself and gives little presentations, so it's great.
Oh, nice.
How old is your son?
He's 13.
Okay. Because I think
Yeah.
there's a minimum age of 8. I think at least in our area I think they said that there was certain things you could do at certain ages than
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, I think you have to be 8 in my area to start showing goats and steers and stuff, but younger for bunnies and chickens.
What about you, Robyn? What's your experience in 4-H?
I grew up in 4-H. I actually showed brown Swiss dairy cattle. So I went from about the biggest that you have to the smallest that you could get. Both of my boys were in 4-H. The oldest did like meat type of sheep. He had South Down Hampshires. And so we had that type of fitting because, like the market lambs have to be slick shorn to be showed. The South Downs were slick shored, but the Hampshires, sometimes the Hampshires, when you show them, are shown with a little bit of fleece. So then you had to go through and block them, which is trim off, like we were talking about in shearing, trim off and make it look nice and smooth. My youngest actually started 4-H when he was 5 years old in the state of Massachusetts. They have a program from like 5 to 8 or 9, and it's called the Clover Bug program. And so he started with his first Icelandic back in 2004. That's when we started with Icelandic. And he started as a clover bud, and it just grew from there to what we have now. When he was about 14, he was getting shafted in 4-H because we were finally to the point, we had been showing long enough that we were starting to win. And it was threatening some of the South Down, some of the meat breeds, some of them breeders, that they were going to get beat possibly by Icelandic. So they started playing dirty. And at that point, he got pretty fed up. And so that's when I started showing. And, it's open class right now. 2 years ago, we went to the Big E for the first time, which is like everybody's state fair. Like the High State Fair, any state fair. The Big E is New England State Fair. And both years, I brought home reserve champion, any other breed wool ewe from the Big E, that title.
Nice.
So did you guys get to choose what breed, or you guys get a list of what's acceptable or not?
At our fair, it's only boar goats.
Okay.
They only do dairy with the cows. I haven't seen any dairy goats shown at our fair. I know Nubians are shown around here. All the dairy breeds are. And that's what I have. This is Bella, by the way. That's my milk girl. I milk Nubians. Austin deals with the boars, and he's actually breeding his own to raise and show, to have his own bred and own pair and stuff. So it's only boar goats around me.
What about you, Robyn? Do you have like a list of what sheep is acceptable, like breeds?
Well, when we started out in 2004, it was, yes, there were lists. And most of the sheep were meat breeds of sheep. They did have where sheep that didn't really have their own show fell into 2 categories. They were any other breed wool or any other breed meat. We actually, I don't want to brag, but when he started in 2004, there was no other wool sheep around.
Mm.
We actually started the real wool show back then. And like I said, it it was an uphill battle. You know, the 4-H kids made fun of him. You know, mind you, it was a little 5, 6 year old that had these fluffy little sheep, and they would make fun of the sheep, they would make fun of him, and I would get so upset. And he finally, through time, showing, being serious, breeding, within like 4 years, we were able to have bred and owned animals. So he was able to have bred and owned animals, so that he could fill the bred and owned classes. And just, we would take our breed standards and the breed judging pages and hand them to judges, because we knew that nobody knew anything about wool sheep. And it was really interesting. You knew, like, when you handed the papers, the guidelines to the judges, if they didn't want them, you knew right where you were going to place at the bottom. If they took them, skimmed over them, you figured, yeah, we might have a little bit of a chance. You'd be in the middle of the class. If the judges actually studied them, looked at them, we actually had a chance. And, while he didn't start at the top of the class, he wasn't at the bottom usually. He started in the middle, but then as time went on, he worked up to the top of the class.
It's interesting that it sounds like from both of your guys' perspective that there's some holes in the 4-H and what you can compete in. I myself have dairy sheep, and that doesn't go into wool or meat really. And that's just that's really interesting that it's like that's not even something that most people would even be able to put into the 4-H program, is certain aspects of each breed. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, we haven't had enough people show interest in any of that. If there was, of course, they would probably put that class in there for show, but it's just not around in my area.
Yeah, well, and I mean that makes sense. I mean, if only one
Yeah.
particular thing is in it, then it's like there's no competition.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of one of those things that's nice to know that needs to be something that like more people do.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole reason for the conference, is to kind of get people more interested in this and be like, yeah, look, there's holes, there's ways for things to expand. So that's great.
Something that we like, that I always do, and I still even do it, is I will go scout a fair or a show out before I decide that, yeah, I'm going to go there. That's just something, you can talk to the superintendent and say, look, this is what we have. Where would they go? I know we are in like AOB wool usually. Lately, because I've been able to fill all the classes, I usually have my own. The Icelandics have their own class, even though we have no competition. But I pull in anywhere from 7 to 9 head, and I'm able to fill every class. So,
what do you guys do with the 4-H specific animals on your guys' farm?
All of the goats that Austin has showed so far at the fair have been sold at market, but we're also getting to where we're, of course, breeding our own, but he'll have some to sell specifically to other 4-Hers. So we don't ever bring what he shows home right now. It might get to that point where he wants to, so he can just show open. But right now, all of his get sold at market at the fair. And then he rolls that money over to his 4-H projects for the next year and puts some back in savings also. So it's a really good investment.
Great. What about you, Robyn? What do you guys do with your animals?
Okay, because the Icelandics cannot make what they call market, they do have market lamb classes, but Icelandics cannot make market lamb size. And, it usually takes between 5 to 6 months. And our fairs, the lambs are born in April. Our fairs start in August and go through September. So we're only talking like about a 4 month period. Um, our guys can't make a market lamb class unless it's a very lightweight class. So all of our animals are breeding stock. They are shown, they are brought home. My youngest is out. He's 21 now, and he's been out for 6 years. I have gotten to the point. A lot of it is through the showing, being reputable, having a reputation in our area through the fairs. I've now started trying to build a national type of reputation so that I am able to sell our livestock, our purebred stock throughout the country. Actually, in 2 weeks, actually in 1 week, I have 4 animals headed to Virginia to start a flock. So it takes, he started in 2004, but it has taken us almost this long to get to where we can do that kind of stuff and start shipping them all over the country.
Wow, that's dedication. But
Yeah.
that's awesome that you guys got there.
Yeah, it takes it. I mean, I grew up with Brown Swiss, which is another minority breed, and yeah, you've got to focus and stay focused.
Yeah, I find with sheep and goats that there's a little bit of education involved in any of the products that seem to come out. Is that there's a lot of like, here, let me explain to you, why we do this, why this is different than cow's milk, because I think cows are just the first thing that most people think of.
Yeah.
And so I'm just finding that like anything that people want to do with sheep and goats, it's there's an educational aspect involved.
Yeah, you can't just go get goats or sheep because they're cute. That's not really how it works all the time.
No.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we go to the fairs, I have like an 8-foot table that is dedicated just to some educational topic, mainly pertaining to Icelandic sheep, because that's kind of what they like to see, is you're trying to promote your breed. But when you talk to people, you don't just talk to them about your breed of sheep. You talk to them about sheep in general.
Because there is this kind of hole in people's thinking. There's a lot of misconceptions too, even within the farming of sheep and goats, even in the conversations I've had, that there's certain things I've said and people go, or someone else says something and another person goes, wait, no, that's actually, they do this. And it's like, it's really awesome to learn that, but also there are misconceptions out there too.
And it depends on what area of the country you're in. Something that I do, somebody else, like, you're not going to want to do because it's not part of your management practices, or you can't obtain something to do it in your area.
Or weather, or like there's so many, every farm is absolutely different. You could have one down the street and it's going to be completely different than the one that's yours, or even the other person down the other street. And so that's and then you add also the products like that we're talking about, is like, depending on what your purpose is, that's going to affect your management style as well. Now, Robyn, I know you do wool and felt and the fiber. Andrea, do you do any of that with your goats?
No.
Okay. Then we're gonna just kind of focus on Robyn for a little bit. I know you're the wool expert in this group right now, because I don't know anything.
Oh goodness.
So I know we have a whole topic discussing like the shearing, but let's talk a little bit about what you do once it's been processed. So once it becomes wool, or once you use it for the felt, like you have it's not raw material, but
you want me to take it from raw state and then to something that can be used?
yeah, if that's the easiest
Okay.
way to kind of talk about it.
Okay, I don't have, this has been washed. This is actually the closest to raw state that I have right here. This has been washed, okay? So what I'm gonna do is, when I shear, as I talked, I skirt as I shear. So that means I take off like all the neck wool, the leg wool, the belly wool. I don't throw it away, I keep it because I use it to make dryer balls, right here, 3.5-ounce dryer balls. And then I pick out any VM, vegetable matter, which is hay, straw, burdocks, because that's a huge possibility if they get out. You know, anything that is a foreign matter that's not wool. At that point, it is ready to be washed. So I wash my own wool. I don't send it out right now to be processed at one of the mills. I am able to process whatever I need to do what I need. So I wash my own wool. I only do a batch at a time, which is like a Rubbermaid tub that's probably, I'm trying to think, 15 to 20 gallon Rubbermaid tubs. That's what I use. I only use 5 gallons of hot water, very, very hot water, as hot water as you can get, in my wash water. That way it's the wool, you know, I don't overpack the wool, you know, I just use 5 gallons. For me, I am able to put a half of a fleece in that Rubbermaid tote. Right now I'm using Unicorn Power Scour and Fiber Wash, depending upon what breed of fleece I'm washing, what breed of sheep. I don't just use Icelandic sheep, you know, from my sheep. I try to use as much of it as I can. I use Cheviot wool, which is a meat breed. I use that for core wool, which is what is in, let's just take these. This is all Icelandic, but core wool would be the inside, what would be on the inside of this ball if this wasn't all Icelandic. And to me, it's a cheaper wool. So it's either free, like for me, somebody gave me one of those huge shearing bags full of Cheviot wool. It felt okay, you know, it felt really nice. So I just wash it and use that for the core wool. I put the wool in, I use the right amount of soap. We have hard water, so I have to use a water softener. I use Calgon. It goes in, it sets for 20 minutes, very, very, very little disruption, because the more you move wool around, and if you let it cool off too much, it will felt. Icelandic wool felt very, very easy. I mean, if you look at it wrong, it can felt. A lot of my wool in the spring is felted, and I have to take it off felted. So after the 20 minutes, I have rinse water ready, and that has a dab of vinegar in it. It goes right from the wash water to the rinse water, so it doesn't cool off. You want to keep everything at the same temperature, and then it sets in there for 20 minutes. When it's done with the rinse and the wash, I take it out. I like to do it outside because, one, it's messy. Two, the sun does a beautiful job drying fleece. So I will use old window screens, a baby gate, door screens, anything that allows air to flow through it. And I have that put on top of those wooden clothes drying racks. So the fleece goes out of the rinse water, goes onto the racks, and then dries until it's dry. I will flip the fleece over to dry the bottom side too. When it is dry, I put it in like plastic bags like this with cedar chips. The cedar chips are to help prevent those little nasty moths, the wool moths that come about sometimes. And then I file it. When I need it to use it, I actually have 3 different ways of being able to card it. I, within the last 2 months, purchased a used drum carder. It's like a 6-inch drum. I have 2 hand cards that I can use if I have like a small, I need just a small amount and I don't need anything big. I can card out just a tiny bit and then do my project. And then my husband built me a set of hackle, which is those, it sits on the table and it has a bunch of spikes that stick up and you pull the wool through the spikes. Then you take what they call a ditch. But I actually just use a washer. You pull the wool through it and you get like really fine, let's see, like this, roving, really fine. The washer that I'm using is thinner, has a smaller hole, so probably half this size. That's what I can get as far as the roving from the ditch. So with the drum cardist, because I only card it once, I get what they call bat, which this is a bat right here. A bat has only been carded once. That means the fibers are going every which way still. The more times I run it through the drum carder, the more it becomes roving, where all of the fibers are lined one way. I am able to use bats easier in my felting because of the fact that the fibers are going every which way. It felts a lot easier, regardless of whether it's wet felting or dry felting. And then it's ready to use. I will take like this piece right here. This has been washed. I'll take off, and if I need to have a project that needs locks, I will pull out locks and then use them that way too. So I don't card all of my fiber that's been washed and the fiber that I use for locks is washed just a little bit different. It's washed in a single layer so that everything doesn't get all, mushed together like this right here. You want to keep the locks so that they lay out like that. And then when I pick them up, I'm very careful to pick up each section of lock separately and move it over to the rinse water because I want to keep those locks intact so I can use them.
So is it the dryer balls that you mostly make?
No.
Oh.
My dryer balls I make with just all of my skirting wool.
Okay.
So the neck wool, the belly wool, the leg wool, and when I say the leg wool, I mean the when I shear the sheep, I don't have. Hold on one second. Here we go. Here's a sheep. When I shear the sheep, this whole part is what I use for felting, or that's what is also used for making yarn when people make yarn. So I will shear down the neck like this and come down the front and then cut across. So whatever is even with the belly. And so my skirting wool is the neck. Whoops, this little guy is across here. And then I usually take, depending on what the wool looks like on the back leg, some wool is straight and kind of matty type. Some wool is nice and curly like the rest of the body. If it's straight, matty type, just doesn't look good, that will also be skirted wool because I can use it and it doesn't matter what it looks like. So my dryer balls, my signature is the fact that they are multiple colors, like the black is black and white, the brown is brown and cream. So anything that comes off of the neck, the belly, the legs, the lower legs goes into dryer balls. I usually make, this year I'll probably make more because I've got more sheep, or I've sheared more as far as lambs. Usually I end up making, and I sell them in quantities of 3. So a package of dryer balls is 3 dryer balls. And I usually make about 20 packages of dryer balls.
Is that a year?
Yeah. 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 So then I do what they call 3D needle felting. This was just something I made last weekend. It's a stack of pumpkins. I do animals, you name it. I did a minion. Somebody wanted a minion, and I did a minion.
That's cute.
Those aren't hollow, correct? Those are all.
Now, this has core wool in the center. Now, this is not felted as tight as some people felt a project, because the tighter you felt the core wool, the harder it will be to get the outside layer on. But then you're not going to be able to put, can you see the ridges that are in here, like the pumpkin ridges?
Yeah.
If you felt it hard, it's going to be a lot harder to get those ridges in deep enough so that you can actually really see them. The bottom two also has indents. So both the tops and the bottoms of each layer has an indent like this right here. And if it's felted hard, you're not going to get that indent in there either. So this is I'm able to squish it. See if I can show you. See, I can squish it.
Yep.
I like squeezing, popping fresh Pillsbury Doughboy. And I've done larger pumpkins where you felt with the core wool on the inside. The reason behind using core wool on the inside is it's cheaper wool, or free. In my case, it was free. And you're using less of like the colored wool.
Mm-hmm.
So you just cover it with the colored wool. Whereas if she told me that this bottom pumpkin right here uses, I think it was like 2 ounces of wool, which is a lot. But if you can split that into like 1.5 ounce, or 1 ounce of core wool and then 1 ounce of colored wool, then you're using less colored wool. And if you're buying it, obviously it's going to be cheaper because your colored wool is, I think this wool here, I don't dye yet, other than to make black. Our Icelandics don't really have a jet black color. It's more of a soft black with a little bit of gray, white in it. So if I want to use black, I have to dye black, dye it black. So I purchase most of my colored wool because I don't have time to play around. If I have a certain project in mind, like I did a Hereford bullhead. I don't have time to play around to get the right color. I went down to the yarn store and said, took a picture with me, and I bought the yarn or the wool, the roving that I needed for that Hereford head. Right now, that's just the way it is. And I'm able to use enough of our Icelandic wool, whether it be the Moritz, which is the brown, the black, the cream, or the white. Like this here is Icelandic wool. Something else that I make, that I learned how to just make, and I'm going to keep making, little tiny acorns. You use the real caps, and then you make the acorn balls and then glue them on.
Have you ever done felted soap? I know that I've seen people do the felt around.
I haven't done it now. That is this. I was going to have, and I'm probably going to do some for Christmas presents. I do have the soap. That is actually one of my next projects, is making soap. That will be next year, is making sheep's milk soap and lotion. I have 2 soap molds. I have a sheep shaped soap mold, and then I also have, it says 100% pure soap mold. And then I will be doing some of them with the felted, the felted covering. But then I'm also going to take like a little, and do a little, like, probably make a sheep's face on the side of the bar of soap, just to distinguish it just a little bit different from everybody else that tries to sell soap or, felted type of soap.
Do you do yarn as well, or is it mostly felt?
It's all felted.
Okay.
I have this one that I started. It's a Holstein cow head. The black was dyed darker. It is from our sheep. The white is from our sheep. The blue, obviously not. And then this one is one that I did, and all of our sheep except for the color is is that gonna glare?
Yeah, but if you kind of move it around, it can kind of get the idea. Yeah.
There you go.
So that is all natural. That is all our sheep except for the red and the colors that are up top. The gray is Icelandic. The white is Icelandic. The brown, the black. And then you can't see, but I can make it look like snow. They have these little fibers. It's hard to felt in, but it's called Angelina, and it's a sparkly type of fiber. It's not even a fiber. We call it fibers. It's kind of like pencil, but tinier than pencil.
Okay.
And it's sparkly. It comes in different colors, but because I wanted it for white, I just bought the clear color. So in the snow area, there is a little bit of that sparkliness showing.
Awesome. That's so cool that you can do art. I mean, you do the pumpkins, but you can also do it in like the picture frame.
Yes, that is what in this Holstein head, the Hereford that I had done. Those are what they call 2D felting.
Is the pumpkin then, is that considered 3D?
That's 3D, yeah.
Okay.
2D is like wall type of art, if that's how you want to put it. It still has dimension, like the Hereford head, and this Holstein head. Let me see, I can show you with this. Like the ears will not be felted directly to the back. It will just be felted at the end here, so they'll be sticking up. This nose here will be built out, so it actually looks like, her head is sticking, she's sticking her nose out at you. That's why I hadn't done this. This is like the last to be done, is because I will be building it out with core wool, and then add the white on top. Should probably have a little bit of curly, a little bit of curly wool tacked to the top, because sometimes they have, like a little bit of curliness at the top, just so that it continues to look real.
What's your favorite part of the process? I know that's always a hard question.
Raising the sheep? No, it just depends. I actually love to felt the needle felting, because if you've had a very stressful day, you can you got to be careful. You can break the needles, but you can just let everything go through those needles out, and it leaves your body. That has happened, yes. I love to work with the wool. I love to raise the sheep. I actually love to share.
It's a very tactile hobby.
Hands-on, yes.
Very hands-on.
Yes.
What's the most time-consuming part? Is it the cleaning?
I probably making the project, depending upon the size of the project. Because this pumpkin stack, I did it in 2 hours. But the sheep, the Icelandic scene here with the sheep, that took me 8 hours to do. The Holstein head, I already have, let's see, I already have 4 hours in that. I think the Hereford head, I keep in most of my pictures 8x10 size, so that I can try to keep the hours about, the same. The Hereford head, I think I had about 12 hours in, because his pole gave me fits. I couldn't quite get it to look right, to have the right dish. With the, their, when you look at cows, some of their heads, the way their hair lays away from the center, that type of stuff. And I couldn't get him right. And finally I got to the point, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. No more. You can't go too far.
It's like with any art, it's at some point, sometimes you just stop. So that's,
you make it worse.
Yeah, it's just it's okay. I could fiddle with this forever. So that's definitely the wool part of it. Let's move on to Andrea, because you said you do a lot with milk. So you want to kind of explain a little bit about what you guys do on your end with your goats?
So I have Nubians and I milk them. We drink the milk every single day. I use it in our daily lives with that. But I also mainly use it to make soaps, body butters, bath bombs, lip balms. And then I also make sugar scrub, but that does not have milk in it. So I started wanting to make my own products, mainly because there's so many chemicals and preservatives and things that are very harmful to your body. My husband started to have psoriasis years ago. So I was looking at everything we use and put on us that can affect our skin, mainly his. So I started making goat milk soap. That was my first venture. And tea tree was the first kind that I made. And right away, I started to see results in his skin, mainly his elbows and his knees. It was starting to clear up. And then I just went from there. I did bath bombs and lip balm next. And then the body butter was my most difficult thing that I made. But I think it's the best. It's my best seller for sure. And it's amazing. So that's what I started to do. And I make all the body butter is one kind. I don't do scents. And the soaps, I have a lot of different varieties, but mainly with the body butter, a lot of people have allergies to certain essential oils. So I just leave it, it's unscented, but it has a really nice natural scent. And if you want, I can go through the ingredients and stuff.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Take off.
Oh, I have nothing to write with. Darn it.
Here is a look at my body butter.
Oh.
It's a lot thicker, hence body butter. I did have a request to make it thinner, so I did do that so you can use it in a pump. That's the first time I did that, and she said it worked really well. But the ingredients in the body butter are almond oil, cocoa butter, shea butter, grapeseed oil, avocado oil, emulsifying wax, distilled water, and I use a natural preservative that is formaldehyde. And I wrote it down because when I'm on the spot, I like to forget things. Paraben free. And then, of course, the main ingredient is goat milk, which I have to pasteurize my goat milk before using it in the body butter because you have more of a chance of, germs and stuff like, what's the word? Something growing inside the jar that you don't want there. Bacteria. There you go. This is why I try to take notes because when I'm on the spot, I forget all these words that are not that hard.
It's because I'm on the milk side too, just sheep milk, and I'm like, that's all about like whenever you're working with milk in general, it's just bacteria.
Bacteria, yeah. Everything has to be sanitized, super hot soapy water, very clean work area. So from start to finish, I have a stainless steel 5-gallon bucket I use every morning and night with Bella. I make my own udder cleaner to clean her with beforehand. And then immediately when I'm done milking, I'll spray her with the fight back spray and bring it inside. And I strain it, of course. It goes in the fridge. I will pasteurize, depending on what size batch I'm doing, maybe a 1/4 gallon of milk. I don't make real huge batches. When I make super big batches, I tend to run into problems with it setting up correctly. I don't know why. It's really aggravating, but I just do smaller batches, which will give me about 10 5-ounce jars. So yeah, it's not bad. And
are you only milking one goat then?
I only have one girl I milk right now, but I'll have 2 next year.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going. I just was curious as to how many you were milking.
Bella gives me a little over a 1/2 gallon a day when she's at her prime. Right now, she's been trying to dry up. So I've been giving her fennel and dill to help up her milk production. And then she gets alfalfa pellets, black oil sunflower seeds, beet pulp, and then the sweet stock mix. So the alfalfa is like key in that too, which I'm sure you all know. But my soaps, I've got lavender oatmeal and lavender thyme. Everybody loves lavender. My favorite is honey brown sugar.
That sounds amazing.
I've got little heart tags. Yeah. And it's all natural. Like there's no essential oils in it. It's super smooth and creamy. I do the round soaps and the square soaps. I've got honey cinnamon oatmeal. And the cinnamon I use is cinnamon powder, not essential oil, because the granules will give you a nice little exfoliation effect. And then I've got calendula, orange, rosemary, which I infuse the calendula myself. I like to do as much off of the homestead that I can. Like with the soap, I have my pork lard in it, which I rendered from our hogs that we butchered here. And then the other ingredients in the soap is simply my goat milk, coconut oil, olive oil, and lye. So I don't add a lot of extras. I like to keep a very simple base. I know some people like to do sparkles and colors from clay. I like the more natural look. So that's just my preference. But I'll do different designs in them with how I mix them. So the cinnamon gives that brown color, so you have a nice little swirl there. But the saponification process of the soap, once you mix everything, add it together, and it sits, will bring that nice color effect. Like sometimes in my soaps, I have to put them right into the freezer because, like with the honey brown sugar soap, the sugar content in the honey and the brown sugar together will heat everything up a lot. And you can get this lava effect that starts to happen, and it will leave like a gel center in your soap, which you pretty much have to ditch it. It's really sad. I've had that happen a couple times. So with that soap, I have to put it into the freezer right away, and you can feel it heating up on the outside of the mold. I have a loaf mold, and then I have little silicone round molds, which gives me my pretty round cupcake looking ones. And with the loaf mold is when I have to put it into the freezer because there's so much more content in there.
There's a lot of chemistry involved in soap making.
There really is, and I think I've had a lot more trial and error with my soap than anything else. But it, like Robyn has said, it's really therapeutic working with my products and making stuff, and just knowing that it's from your farm, it's really satisfying and rewarding. And I've turned a lot of people on to the more natural lifestyle and not just going to the store and getting something from Bath and Body Works per se, or Walmart soaps and stuff, because you really don't know the harm that you're doing to your body, because that is your largest organ where everything soaks into your system and affects everything. So I've had a lot of really great feedback of people that have had wrinkles start to diminish, age spots, scars, eczema, psoriasis with my husband. I do have to put the body butter on for him because he's a man. He's not going to do it himself. But then, like really chapped skin, my son's hands get super chapped in the winter, and it's healing. It's really healing.
You said you also do chapstick too, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So here's my little lip balms. Okay, you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have lemon, and then I just did lavender tangerine. And these, they're not really thick. They go on pretty smooth. And it's essential oils I put in those. And the ingredients in the chapstick is shea butter, beeswax, goat milk powder, vitamin E, apricot oil, and jojoba.
So goat milk powders, as far as I am aware, is you actually have to dry out the milk, and it becomes kind of crumbly, correct? And then you have to like blitz it to make it even more powdery, or how do you? That's what I've heard someone do for sheep's milk. How do you make your powder?
I have not personally done powder myself yet.
Okay.
I get it locally from somebody else that does it. I've been wanting to experiment with that, but I've done the research and it doesn't seem really difficult. So I'm hoping to do that soon because I have to use the powder in my bath bombs also. They say you can do it with liquid milk, but that's a little too testy. And then if you use the liquid in the lip balms, you need to use another preservative, which the lips are a lot more delicate, so I just choose not to do that.
Somebody was telling me the freeze dryer. They use that to make for the powdered sheep milk.
Yeah, or just a regular dehydrator.
Yes, I've seen the one I've seen. Someone did it with a dehydrator.
Oh, nice.
But it is a lot. I think it's one of those things you have to test out if you're not familiar with it. And there's probably a lot of like fiddling that you have to do. It's possible. It's just that extra step. Yeah. And one of the things I love about soap and your soap too is that I love seeing actual herbs like kind of spread throughout. I don't know why, but I love the look of oatmeal. The like oatmeal on the top, like those are just great. But I also know that like with some glitters, they're not biodegradable. So like a lot of times people will put things in soap and stuff, and it's like in the long term environmentally, it's also not so good. So like you were saying, it's really good for the skin, but it's also good for the environment to do all natural ingredients.
Yeah, definitely. It's just really healing and it feels good. The soap does not dry your skin out either, like a lot of the soaps from the store will. It's really soothing and moisturizing. So all of my family, of course, uses it, and the soaps and the body butters are my best products, and I'm really happy with it.
How long does it take you to, I know soap has to cure for a certain amount of time. Can you kind of talk about your products and how long it takes you to kind of go from start to finish?
Sure. So I freeze my goat milk to make the soap. I'll put it in ice trays, and then I'll just dump them in plastic bags and keep them in the freezer. So when I go to start my soap, because the lye is so hot, you want to use frozen milk so you don't burn the milk. Or if you burn the milk, it'll turn like an orange reddish and it doesn't smell good. I've had that happen one time. It's been a lot of trial and error. So you'll mix the lye and the milk first, and you will have all of your oils and butters melting in a pot. And then I always pour my butters and oils first and then add the milk and lye mixture. You want the lye and the milk to be completely dissolved, and you can feel the granules of the lye in the bottom of the jar. Well, I use a glass bowl. Everything needs to be stainless steel and glass because it will eat away rubber. And you also want to use silicone because it doesn't melt into that either. And you don't want to use aluminum. Aluminum is a big no-no because it will have an adverse reaction with the lye. So I'll mix everything together, and a stick blender is my best friend. That is like one of the best investments that I got for making soap and body butter. I tried to use my hands at first when I first started making soap, and it only worked for like one batch. And then I figured out I need my stick blender. So I will stick blend the mixture until it starts to get a thicker consistency, almost like Jello, how it will just go back to its flat form on the top. It won't slush around. Then you'll know that it's all emulsified together. And that is when, if I have any extra essential oils or cinnamon, honey, whatever, I'll add that in. But with certain products like the honey and the cinnamon or peppermint is a hot oil. You'll want to do that on a quicker note because it will thicken up very quick, and then it is hard to pour into your molds and do like I do my little swirl design in the top. It's near impossible to get that once it gets too thick. So watching those signs and knowing the timing of when you think it's going to heat up quick and thicken is your best thing to look for when mixing everything together and getting it into your molds. Especially, you don't want that lava volcano thing effect to come. But I let my soaps sit for 5 weeks before they're ready to be used. And I will let them sit 24 hours first after placing them in the mold before I take them out and cut my bars. So I'll put them in a shoebox. I have about 10 shoe boxes in my office. It looks kind of ridiculous, but that's the best way for the soaps to breathe and go through their whole saponification process. So yeah, the soaps, because if you use it like a couple days after, you can still get burned from the lye. That's why I let them sit so long. Some people might do 4 weeks or 8 weeks. 5 weeks seems to be the best for me. And I've never had any adverse reactions.
I would assume that the length of time would also depend on like where you are, humidity level, if you have good circulation in your house. Like
yeah.
like that seems like that would come into play on how long it would be like a good time for individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want your products to sit in direct sunlight. And that's another reason why I like to put them in shoe boxes. So they're in a dark area. Because the sunlight, I haven't had it happen with, changing the color of anything. But, with the essential oils, if you have certain oils like cinnamon oil, which will give it like a redder color, it probably could take the color out. And also, since these are all natural products, they can sweat. I've had that happen once before. So when I ship my products, like with my body butter especially, I'll put an ice pack in there with it because the butters and the oils will take on a more liquid state. And the lip balms. But yeah, our house stays a pretty good temperature. I haven't noticed any reactions to anything other than that.
You don't have a ton of humidity up in or over in Virginia, do you?
We do in the summer. It's not horrible.
Okay.
But
I know
our house
like
stays
for
about
us,
the same.
humidity, like it's really humid outside, and it doesn't matter how well our air conditioning's doing. There's still a little bit that comes inside the house. So do you do most of your soap making during the summer when you're milking, or do you freeze it and do a lot of it during winter when you kind of have a little bit more downtime?
It's pretty much a supply and demand, honestly. This is the first year I've had my Etsy shop. So I think I've made a little more soap over this summer than I did last year for sure. I definitely try to do things like I'll take a week and just strictly do a batch of soap like every day. But of course, in the winter is when I would prefer to do that because we aren't doing as much outside work. I try to stay ahead of it as much as I can. Life in general can throw things out there, and you have kids and everything. But I haven't gotten behind. I make my bath bombs more on a, when I get an order, I'll make those. And with my sugar scrub, that's a made to order thing. But everything else I pretty much keep in stock.
Do you have a favorite product? I know you said your audience does, but do you have one?
I think my body butter is my favorite.
So same as your customers?
Yeah. It's a toss-up between the body butter and the soap. I'd have to say the body butter, though.
Yeah.
That was my most, the product that I wanted to make the most, that I think I procrastinated the most on because it took me so long to get that recipe down and it perfect. So yeah, I'm most proud of my body butter. It's not for everybody, but I haven't gotten any bad reviews yet. So
Yeah, it's very unique because there's not a lot. I mean, from what I've heard, milk, sheep and goat's milk, as well as the lanolin from sheep and stuff like that, are really good for cosmetics. You just don't see them around very much. You
Yeah,
see them in soap a lot, but when it comes to the actual like cosmetic part, um, there's just not that much out there with that. And so that's really cool that you got a really awesome recipe that
yeah,
um, that everyone seems to really enjoy.
yeah. And you can use it total body. I have customers that will use it on their face. It is a little heavier and it can go once with a slight greasy feel, but it soaks in really nice. You don't have that greasy feel. So like I can have really sensitive skin and it doesn't really affect me on my face because I'm at the age where I'm terrified to get wrinkled. So I like to put it on my neck and my eyes and my forehead mainly. Save the face, and
Mm-hmm.
it does really well. I also had a girl, she rides a lot, and I guess she started to get like cracked under where her toes will bend, almost like an athlete's foot, and she put it on her feet and it healed her feet from that cracky, itchy stuff
Yeah.
that was going on. Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and this is really nice to have that awesome feedback too,
Yeah,
for products, just that people are like, "Oh my gosh, they're helping so much."
yeah, yeah.
All right.
So my Etsy shop is Prosperous Hills Farm, all one word. If
Mm,
anybody wants to check that out, and I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel.
okay.
Yeah,
Is it
I'm
the same
fasting.
name?
I'm sorry, what?
Is it the same name?
Yes, Instagram is prosperous underscore hills underscore farm, but the Facebook and YouTube and Etsy is all Prosperous Hills Farm, all one word. I am fasting social media right now, so there's really not much on there at the moment for this month, but I'll be back on, when I'm supposed to be in the near future.
Um, so now that we got those are your guys' I think main products, correct? Is that yours is the cosmetics and the body soap, and Robyn, yours is mostly the felt, and you guys also talked about the 4-H. Um, do any of you guys do hides? I think Robyn, you said you did, correct?
I actually have 3 hides that are dry, and I was waiting for things to slow down, and then I'm going to try my hand at tanning them. Yep.
Okay, so you haven't done it yet, or this? So it says something in the works.
They have been salted and they're dry. So they're just hanging out right now, waiting for me I gotta, they need fleshed in just a couple of places. Um, and then I'm going to use the solution and follow a tutorial and do them myself.
Now, did you get the hides from your sheep yourself, or did you have them go process and get back?
Nope, they're from our sheep.
That
Two of
process.
them I've had since last fall. No, it would be like January. We butchered 2 rams. One is bigger than the other one, and then this um, in July, I I don't want to say accidentally, but I lost a ewe lamb,
Mm.
um, unsuspecting. I was leading her, and I weaned them, and I put her back out, put all the lambs back out with the mothers, and we think that she got rammed because her neck got broken.
Mm.
And I tried to save her, and then I'm like, oh well, I worked for 15 minutes and it didn't work. And then, I went to go pick her up to take her and bury her, and I'm like, wow, she has gorgeous fleece. You know, I'd never done it before, so I skinned her myself, and learning all the way.
Mhm.
Um, and then once I got her skinned out, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of meat here, for a little lamb. I ended up getting like 3 meals worth of meat off of her. And like the whole time, I never, I'm used to cutting up meat once it's been skinned, once it's been gutted out and all that kind of stuff. I've never done it from, them being dead to that part. So
Yeah,
I
I
learned
find
a lot.
I find some of that like turning products from your animals is such a nice way to honor them. Like you said, it was like an accident, and instead of just going to waste, it was like now we're going to kind of honor her by, respecting the meat, but also taking her wonderful wool and then having something really special from her in the once you process the hide. When it comes to the meat, uh, Andrea, have you done anything with your meat with your goats?
We don't butcher our goats. We butcher our own chickens and pork and turkeys, and then we'll be butchering our own beef in the future.
Okay. So then Robyn, when you cut yours, were you cutting just basic slabs? Did you make sausage, ground? Um, what kind of things did you do with your meat?
Off of her, I just cut it off. And I ended up making it like a stew type of meat. It was nothing fancy because, like I said, there wasn't a lot there. I hadn't gutted her, so I was trying to be very careful and not puncture, the gut area because all of that stuff was there. So I just, sliced around very carefully. When we do our own for ourselves. Mostly, we make ground meat and
I'll be right back.
and cubed meat
Okay.
because that's what my husband can eat. The ground meat will become sausage. Some of it will become sausage. I make the sausage like we usually have breakfast on Sundays. So Friday night I'll take out the ground meat, thaw it. Saturday morning I'll incorporate all the spices and then let it set till Sunday with the spices in it. And that's how I make our own sausage. And it's just like a ground sausage. It's not put into like the sausage links or any patties or anything like that. It's just ground.
So was the butchering by choice or necessity? Because I know a lot of butchers in the area are completely like filled up. And I know a lot of people are kind of forced to do their own butchering because they just don't, the butchers are all backed up. So for you, was that just a personal choice or was that a necessity?
When that ewe lamb passed away, it was necessity because but we have my family is a family of hunters, so we have always had something or whatever that they have hanging and that we cut up. And within the because we've done some baby beef with dairy, Holstein and New Jersey, and we kind of started tying it all together when the guys got their deer or deers. We would cut them up one weekend, and then that same weekend we would render a couple of lambs, whatever we had that needed to go into the freezer, and then they would hang until the next weekend because a lot of times the weather was cold, so they were just slightly frozen. And then we would cut up whatever we took care of the weekend that we were cutting the deer up. We would cut them up the following weekend.
And I know we talked a little bit earlier about horns and skulls. So is that kind of, I was like, I want to get on this topic because it's such a unique one. So Robyn, can you talk a little bit about when you guys did do your skulls, was that again something you guys did at home that you processed yourselves?
We just left it outside. We put it somewhere inconspicuous where it's not going to smell or the smell doesn't bother us. That has actually been a topic on Facebook with the Icelandic breeders, owners, how people have dealt with cleaning skulls. And there is a wide variety of methods that people are using. We just took and hung it outside from a tree and left it there for the summer. The first one we did by accident because we didn't really know what we were doing, and it was it was a ram lamb, so his horns were just starting to come around to the front, so they weren't really that big. And Dennis was like, well, let's just try this, let's see what we can do. And we just hung it out and went back to it that fall, and it was pretty much so cleaned right off.
What do you guys do with the skulls once they're cleaned?
I usually sell them. I sold the two that we had. The one that I had that was starting to come back up, actually a lady was so excited to get it because some her heritage had that. And she's like, this is perfect. I'm like, but it's not like, the full where they keep curling and keep curling. And she's like, no, this is just right. The one that I have out here now, I think he's probably going to stay here because even though I don't have horned Icelandics, I would love to have, a skull hanging on the wall somewhere.
And to know that was that's one of ours. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. One of the uncommon ones because I don't have horns anymore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know, so there's two other things that I know that people have used sheep and goats for, and one of them's more common. One of them is something that I know that is currently being researched. The one that people use is the manure. Their poop for compost. Do you guys do that at all? Do you sell it, or you just let them kind of fertilize your fields?
I just let them fertilize the fields. And of course, I'll use it in the gardens.
What about you, Robyn? Do you do anything with them or just let them?
When we clean out the pens, we do compost it. When they're on pasture, obviously they fertilize the field. We have sold it. I use quite a bit of it in the garden that I have in my containers and stuff like that. Next year, hopefully, we're going to have enough that I can put the composted manure out onto the pasture area first thing in the spring to help, replenish the nutrients in the pastures, other than what they're doing as they're grazing it.
So the other one that I've just looked into, and I don't know if this is so much for goats, but I know it's for wool, is that some people are starting to use the wool for insulation, and some people even use it for packaging. So instead of using those papers or the bubbles or something, they'll actually use the wool itself. Have you done any of that, Robyn, or do you just have heard of it?
I have heard of it, and I've actually received some items from other shepherds done up in wool. It can range from, usually it's washed, just like this type of washed wool. I have also had it where I don't have anything to show you. It's a felted sheet of wool. Once I get enough of a certain color, I want to go have mine sent off to be felted. And it comes in a pre-felted, they felt it into a sheet that you can use it for either wrapping packages, or I would be using it to cut up silhouettes and make pillows with. And as far as the insulation, I've heard it's being done. I'm not sure how they're dealing with some of the logistics as far as having insects get into it or keeping the insects out. And wool can tend to settle or felt, as it settles, it could become, lumped together. So I don't know how they're dealing with all of that. Whether they're using like felted sheets that are yay wide, that are already pre-felted, and putting them up. I'm not sure. I mean, I know that they're looking, there is a couple of countries that are actually, I think I've seen that are actually utilizing cheap wool for insulation.
Yeah. And it's so that's one of those things that's like there's still research out there that's like, how do we use these animals as appropriately as possible, or like in a variety of different ways. I've heard people sometimes will use their extra wool for their for the nesting boxes for their chickens.
I use it to insulate water buckets sometimes.
Yep.
Okay.
My spring wool, a lot of times, because I shear twice a year, my spring wool, because just the logistics of our weather and the sheep rubbing against the fences and each other, it felt. And so I am cutting, when I shear them, I'm shearing off a felted sheet of wool. I'm actually looking into making with those, and I have people that are looking to buy them, those vegetarian fleeces, which is, it's like a pelt, but it doesn't have the skin. Instead of the skin, it's a felted piece of wool on the back of it. So you still have the long fleece, the long tips and stuff. But if some of it is too dirty, full of vegetable matter, I'll use it on the garden. Put it down. I tend to use it more in the walkways than around the plants. Some people will put it around their plants, and it helps control weeds.
Yeah. Is there any products or anything that you guys have even heard of, even or interested in, that I didn't mention? Because those I know that, I mean, I've done some weird research and I've learned a lot of weird, like, look at all these weird things you can do. Is there anything that I missed that you guys are like, oh, I've heard this, some people do this, or I'm really interested in going into this. I know, Robyn, you said you're interested in going to hides, that's kind of.
The felted places.
Is there anything else that I didn't mention?
You didn't talk at all about yarn and stuff, but that is out of my,
Yes,
because that's a huge thing. I mean, a lot of our lamb wool that people have spun into roving is sold for yarn.
Yes, and I have other topics that touch on wool a little bit. So I was like, if you guys had experience with that, I was like, we'll talk about it. But because both of you guys were kind of like, not really, then I was like, that's fine, because we've got other topics that cover that. But I know that is a huge one. That is one that's like, if you think of at least sheep, I know there are goats. For cashmere and is it Angora, the mohair? And so I do talk about that with the shearing group and stuff like that. But I mean, Andrea, do you have goats that you shear?
No.
Okay, so they're like the kind that are perfectly fine, and it's not like a health issue for not shearing. It's like that's what they're supposed to do.
No, none of our animals get long hair.
Okay.
One less thing to upkeep.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of a lot of the topics I've also got into when you're talking about like choosing the breeds is you have to go into it knowing kind of what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Some people are like, I do not want to shear at all, so I'm going to get a hair sheep, or I'm going to get a goat that doesn't need it. Other people are like, no, I absolutely love yarn and wool. And I'm like, that's something that I have to have. But is there anything with, like, I'm a little bit more familiar with the sheep world because that's kind of where I'm from, basically. But Andrea, do you know of anything that's for goats that that are specific to goats, or that maybe I didn't mention that you can possibly do with goats? I mean, the other product we didn't talk about was just selling the animals themselves. You know, because at least in the milk world, you have to have babies. you
Yeah.
That's just part of the process, is that you have to breed them and they have to have babies, and that's how you get the milk. And then what you do with the babies is you sell them, either for other farms, for meat, for other breeding programs, for if there's a specific ram that's really good that people really like. Do you do a lot of that? Because I know you guys said you sell your 4-H on the market, but for your farm, do you guys have a breeding program for your milk, and how does that work?
Not specifically. When I first got Bella, she was already bred. So that made it a lot easier for me, especially just starting out. But I got her from a very reputable Nubian breeder that's nearby. And she's also registered, and they do the tests every year on them to make sure they're free of CL and all that stuff. So when I bred her myself last time, I got another registered Billy, but then I recently just got my new girl. Her name's Taterbug. She's my first ever bottle baby, so that was a whole new experience. But she's the sweetest thing ever, and she's also registered from a very reputable breeder. So when I do look for other animals to get, I definitely look for the reputation and the testing and make sure it's a clean herd, because I myself want to have that same reputation and show that everything's free of pesticides and whatever parasites and all. So we don't have a whole lot of goats, like a big herd. We kind of keep it on the smaller side because we're mainly leaning towards raising beef. So I'm just keeping enough to sustain our family and my products. But, if I have trouble selling the baby, normally I just have to keep it for a while to get it to the weight where I can make a little bit of a profit at like the local stock sale. Sad to say, but sometimes that's just what you have to do.
Mm-hmm. What are your guys, so this is the last question, then we'll kind of wrap it up. But what are some of maybe the most asked questions that you get from people, either about your products or about just sheep or goats in general? What are people most interested in kind of learning?
How to keep goats, mainly. But my products per se is how long does it last? Which a bar of soap for the 3 of us in my house will last a couple weeks, not quite a month. But the guys use it on their head. So I don't buy them shampoo. Which is better for them anyways. I use it on my hair sometimes too. And the body butter, this jar will last me personally for about a month, because a little bit goes a long ways. And then having goats is just raising them, keeping them rotated, make sure you're checking their lids, watching their coats, their stool. And that's a huge misconception, is keeping goats. How it's really not that simple. I mean, we've definitely gotten in our routine, and it's always a learning process, especially since we have 3 different breeds. The other one, it's a mini Alpine and Nigerian dwarf fainter mix. That was like my first set that I ever got when I was getting into dairy, and they're just so cute, and they're like bulletproof pretty much. Like, they can be anywhere and they're fine. So I just keep them because they're part of the family. But we have to keep them rotated, separated, especially breeding time. Having goats there's more to it than just putting them out there and petting them and loving on them here and there.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't had goats personally, but I know that they have a lot of personality.
Yes, they do. And they'll get out of anything. So you have got to have good fencing.
Mhm.
But where we're located at, they can't get to the road and stuff. So if they get out, it's not a huge deal here, which that happens like every other week, I feel like. It's just part of having a farm.
Now, when you talked about the length of how long your product lasts, that's more of like how long when you're using it can it go, not like preservation wise, right?
Yes, that's when you're using it. The soaps, I haven't had any soaps get, I guess you'd say, rancid. You know, that smell where they just smell like they've kind of gone bad. And the body butters, I've had some for about 6 months before and have never seen change in, like the color or the smell. So I really don't have an expiration date on them.
When it sounds like it's so popular that people use them, and it's like I haven't
Yeah.
really tested it because we just go through it.
Exactly. Yeah. Just don't keep it in direct sunlight, I guess.
Yeah, or like on the stove where it's gonna cook.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
What about you, Robyn? What do people ask you most about felting or just your farm itself? Like, what's kind of the most popular questions that you seem to get?
Well, when I'm out showing, like I said, I have an educational aspect to our show string. Last year, not, we didn't show any this year. There's absolutely no fairs. So last year, my educational portion of it was about all the different things that you can do with Icelandic wool. And I had not done all of the stuff, but I knew other people that I could either purchase or ask them if I could have just like a small sample of XYZ. And the biggest thing I got out of that was, wow, that is a lot of different things. You can melt the Icelandic, so you can do the soap, you can do lotion, candles. You can do candles with the melt. Just, just the whole variety, the whole gamut. And I didn't even touch on any of the meats. I didn't even go there because that's a huge, I don't want to say issue, but it can spark a huge conversation amongst anybody walking by. Is, ooh, how can you eat that? Sorry, you do. And, my comment right back to them is because most of the time the animals that go out for meat for us are rams. And my comment right back to them are, there's only so much that you can do with a male. And they just chuckle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to put it that way, but that's the only way to get through their heads.
Yeah.
We don't just take Rosie and eat her. She's been in, I have an 11-year-old in our flock. She's going to be bred again this year, so she'll be 12 when she lands. We don't take just anybody and eat it. There's only so much you can do with a male.
That's why the girls sell for more.
or since we're doing breeding stock, I'm only going to pick the top 50% of my flock that's going to go out for breeding. So that bottom 50% isn't going to make the cut. So either they're going to go for fiber, which I kind of don't want to do that if it's a female because you don't know if they're going to breed it or not. And I don't like that. This is just my thing, but I don't like something to go out as far as a ewe that is not up to par and somebody's going to try to breed it. Mm-hmm. So like that bottom 50% of my flock, pretty much their meat.
Well, I think it goes back to that whole, each product that comes from the animals is a way to honor them. So if you have a male who's not real breeding stock, he's not providing anything, no one's interested in him, then you honor him by making him something that is sustainable, is good for yourself and your body, and for other people if you end up selling the meat.
Yeah.
Because if it's an animal that you raised on your farm, you know what they were eating, you know how healthy they are, you know that like the meat itself is going to be good, and so that's kind of one of those other things. It's a personal choice, whether because I know a lot of people are like, these are our pets, we don't, that's not something we do.
And when you explain it, I do also explain, besides saying there's only so much you can do with a male, I do also explain that, these animals that are in these pens or whatever's at home that's staying are pets, they're part of the family, they're treated like royalty, and, they're not going anywhere. They're going to stay here. They're going to give us babies. They're going to, they're going to live like Amber, our 11-year-old. Breed her for next year, but who knows what next year has. At that point, she may live out her retirement on a farm.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Andrea, I know you kind of talked a little bit earlier about how people can reach you. Can you just repeat kind of where they can
Thanks
find
for having us.
To follow you on your journey? Oh, I think we're having connection issues.
Yeah, I'm on Etsy.
There we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're kind of cutting in and out.
Or am I here? Let me move a little closer. Is that better?
I think so.
Is that better? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I have my Etsy shop, which is Prosperous Hills Farm, all one word. And then I'm on Facebook, Prosperous Hills Farm, Instagram, Prosperous_Hills_Farm. And then I have a YouTube channel, Prosperous Hills Farm, which if you go to any of those, all the other links will be on whichever place you go. So I can be found. It's all linked together.
And Robyn, can you share where people can find you and your work?
Yes. Our farm name, Cozy Nook Homestead, that is spelled C-O-Z-I-E, not C-O-Z-Y. Cozy Nook Homestead, and it's on Facebook right now, just strictly Facebook. You can get our email and everything there. I just don't have a lot of time because of all my hats I wear to do a lot of pushing on different platforms. So it's mostly just Facebook.
Okay, great. Any closing comments before I sign us off?
Thank you very much, Delaney.
Yeah, thank you. This was great. It's great to be connected.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Everyone I've met and done these interviews with have just been so amazing, and I've learned so much. And I just really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your weekend to, just sit and chat with me about all things, sheep and goat.
Yeah.
So thanks so much. That's interesting, Robyn. I didn't know you did skulls, so that's definitely going to be one.
I no longer have horned Icelandics. I have one, but I started out with some horned Icelandics, and we sold a couple of skulls.
That's cool.
And probably 6-8 years ago. I actually got an oopsie out, a yearling ram right now that his horns are too close to his face, so he's going to end up being a skull. Sorry, I just had to put it that way because it's the way it is.
Yeah, that's amazing though. Like I read this stuff, but our sheep don't have horns, so like that's not something that's even an option for us.
But I know a lot of our breeders,
Also do buttons. Buttons, like the buttons you put on jackets and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Quite a few of our breeders, the breeders that have horned Icelandics, make buttons.
Oh, okay.
That's cool.